Chapter 5. Our Father Who Sleeps Below. There's a part of the swamp where even the sun don't like to linger. Cypress trees lean like old men whispering secrets. Their beards of Spanish moss dip low, trailing in water so still it looks like glass poured from a funeral urn. Dragonflies flit lazy circles above the murk, and if you listen long enough, you'll hear the croak of bullfrogs that don't sound quite right. Not like the ones further north. These sound off. Like something's echoing behind them. Something deeper. That's where the crypt sits. Always has. Long as there's been dirt in Georgia and bones to rot in it, it's not much to look at. A block of stone sunk into the mud, with thick chains crisscrossed over the door like it owes something to the world, and the world's not ready to let it go just yet. The walls are slick with algae and time, and on the front are 3 sigils painted in something that's not rust, but close enough you'd want to believe it is. My name's Ellis. I'm 29, more or less. Spent the last 8 years away, school, then a job in Atlanta I didn't much care for, but kept anyway because it made sense on paper. When Grandma May died, I came back. Not because I wanted to, but because nobody else would. She left the house to me, the land too. 47 acres of choking green and black water, and the crypt, especially the crypt. They say you can tell what kind of life someone lived by the way they go out. If that's true, then May Mercer lived hard and mean. She died sitting upright in her rocking chair on the back porch, eyes open, lips dry, shotgun across her lap, and a Bible cracked to Revelations. They say she hadn't blinked in hours when they found her. Just sat there staring at the tree line, like she expected something to come out of it. Maybe something did. The old folks in town still cross themselves when they pass the church at night, and they won't come near our land. Not even for catfish or coon season. Some of them won't even say the family name out loud. Moss Sons, they call us, even though our birth certificates say Mercer. Makes it sound less real, I guess. But you say Mawson in these parts, and folks start talking about the night preacher. I remember Grandma's voice from when I was little, gravel thick as creek-bottom stone and low like gospel. "We don't pray to him," she'd say, thumb rubbing the cross around her neck until the metal left a burn. "We watch him, so he don't wake hungry." I didn't know what that meant back then. I just nodded like I understood, the way kids do when the adults around them are too haunted to explain themselves properly. Back then, the crypt terrified me. Hell, it still does. The family always said it was a tomb, some Civil War relic or a cholera pit, depending on who you asked. But nobody ever went in, and nobody ever opened it. And when I was about 7, I asked May if we could bury Grandpa beside it, and she slapped me so hard I bit through my tongue. "No one else goes in," she said. "One got buried, and that's enough. He don't need company." First time I saw the place again, after all those years, it was just like I remembered. Maybe worse. I parked the truck in the ruts May called a driveway, boots crunching over dead palmetto. The house stood sagging like it missed her already. The paint peeled, and the porch dipped at the left corner where the cinder block had crumbled. The crypt was behind it, maybe 50 yards down through a clearing of black grass and water hemlock. The trees seemed to bend toward it, as if leaning in to listen. The chains were still there, still tight, but the rust on them looked fresh somehow. Wet. One of the sigils, 3 swirls inside a crescent, had flaked off halfway. A crack ran across the door from the top left corner to the middle, like the stone had shifted from inside. I remember thinking it looked like a scar. I didn't go near it that first night, just stood at the edge of the clearing and looked, stomach doing that slow-turning thing it used to do when I got too drunk in college and the world spun like a loaded roulette wheel. I heard frogs, crickets, something bigger moving slow through the water, maybe a gator, maybe not. When I turned back, I swear I saw something move on the crypt roof. Something small, like a bird or a possum. But it didn't move right. It slithered, hunched, like a child on all fours. But that could have just been the light, could have been anything. The swamp plays tricks like that. That night, I dreamed of teeth, not falling out like the usual stress dreams, not cracking. These were smiling, row after row of long yellow teeth, all curled up behind a smile too wide to be human. And a voice like syrup gone rancid whispering, "You came home, my boy, come home." I woke with mud on my feet, no footprints in the hall, no broken locks, just mud. on my feet, and a red smear across the floor that might have been clay, might have been something else. I found Grandma's journal the next morning. It wasn't in a safe or a desk or even tucked away in a Bible. It was in the freezer, wrapped in foil, under the deer sausage and a half-empty tub of Bluebell. The leather cover was cracked and smelled like oil and mint. Inside, neat cursive, dated entries, little sketches of the crypt, of him. The night preacher. Born Ezekiel Mawson, 1834, one entry read. Died 1879. Buried by fire, sealed by blood. Another, he was not a man at the end, something else wore his skin, something older, and it wanted out. The journal ran nearly 40 years. Every entry a record of sightings, signs, warnings. Animals dead near the crypt. Screams in the trees, wet footprints on the roof. The last entry, written 3 days before May died, simply read, "He is stirring. I can feel him dreaming. Lord, forgive me. I was the last. Now it's his." His. Mine, I guess. That afternoon, I stood at the edge of the crypt again, shotgun in hand and cross around my neck, just like she used to wear it. I didn't know if I was guarding something or getting ready to kill it. Maybe both. I said her name out loud, just to see if the trees would answer. They didn't. But the crypt door groaned, not like metal shifting in the sun, not like heat swell or wind pressure. It was the sound of stone giving way, like a sigh, like someone inside pressing against it, gently, patiently, just to check if you were paying attention. I should have run. I know that now. Should have sold the place, let it rot, let it drown, left the keys with the county and the dead to their swamp. But I didn't, because I'm a Mawson, no matter what name I use, and blood calls to blood. The roll's passed down, same as the land, same as the story, same as the curse. They called him the night preacher. They say he could speak in tongues no man remembers, could charm a woman into her grave and whistle children out their windows. They say he baptized people with his teeth, that he preached sermons full of worms and blood, and when he spoke, your soul unzipped and crawled away from your body, begging for forgiveness. They say he was sealed in that crypt with 13 chains, 13 sigils, and 13 drops of blood from every living family member. But something's shifted. One chain clinks now when the wind blows. The paint bleeds a little when it rains, and last night I saw the door twitch like it had breath behind it. I used to think monsters weren't real, that legends were just fear made long-winded. But legends start somewhere, usually in places like this. Places where the trees lean too close and the water never runs clean. Some things don't die, they just wait. And my grandmother? She wasn't the last. I am, for now. But the ground's getting soft, and the breath behind the stone is getting louder. He's stirring, and I'm not ready. But I have to be. Because our father, he sleeps below, and he's starting to dream of waking up. The family Bible wasn't a Bible at all, not anymore. It had once been. The cover still read Holy Bible in faded gold letters, and the first few pages bore actual scripture. But somewhere around Leviticus, it went off the rails. The pages grew rougher, the ink darker, and the words changed. Whole books were torn out, replaced with hand-stitched parchment bound with twine, margins filled with crabbed handwriting, and what I first thought was rust, I soon realized wasn't. It was blood, dried to a near brown, but unmistakable. Some entries were prayers, most were warnings, some were sermons. Not the kind you'd hear on a Sunday morning, unless you were attending service in a place with no roof and too many teeth. One line kept repeating, again and again across decades of entries. Blood remembers, even when the body don't. That week, the dreams got worse. Not the usual nightmares, no chasing, no falling, just waking up. Over and over, I dreamed of waking in the swamp, mud clinging to my arms like sleeves, eyes open to a moonless sky. Sometimes I was standing at the crypt, sometimes I was inside it. The air was always thick, like breathing through gauze soaked in syrup. And I could hear him, not speaking exactly, more like humming. A wet, guttural hum, like someone gargling music in the back of their throat, the kind of sound that makes you want to cry without knowing why. I woke every morning with mud on my feet. The bathtub clogged. I pulled a frog out of the drain one morning. It was dead, half digested like something had already gotten to it, and its eyes were still twitching. Then Curtis showed up. I hadn't seen him in years. Last time was at Grandma May's house the summer after high school. He'd been drunk then too, probably stoned. Said he was heading out west to chase a girl or a guitar. Never really could tell which. Now he stood on my porch, leaner, grayer, a beer in hand and a smile too wide to be honest. "Well, if it ain't the prodigal," he said, arms spread like he was coming down off the cross. "Didn't think you'd come back, El. I could say the same about you." He laughed at that, hard and hollow. "Hell, I ain't back. I'm just passing through. But I heard about May, figured someone ought to check on you. And the old place." By the old place, I knew he meant the crypt. That night, we drank on the porch. He brought a six-pack and a bottle of something brown and homemade. Said it came from a friend in Tennessee, but I'm pretty sure it came from the glove box of his truck. "Still got the crypt back there?" he asked, nodding toward the woods. "Yeah." "You keeping it locked?" "Of course." He chuckled. "Ain't no of course about it. Most folks bulldoze the damn thing, turn it into a well or a septic tank or something useful. It's not yours to bulldoze." "No," he said, leaning back in the rocker. "But it ain't yours either. It belongs to something else, don't it?" That shut me up for a while. He waited until the crickets went quiet before speaking again. "Listen," he said, voice gone low and thick. "There's folks that'd pay good money for land like this. Developers, private hunters. Hell, them boys from the History Channel'd probably throw in a grant to dig that bastard up just for the ratings. You don't have to keep it." "I do." "Why?" I didn't answer. "You don't even believe, do you?" he said, squinting at me like he was trying to read something written under my skin. "You got city on you now, soap smell, air conditioning eyes. You don't believe in curses. You don't believe in him." I didn't say I did. Didn't say I didn't. But I tightened the chain on the crypt that night anyway. A week later, the frogs were gone. Not just quiet, gone. No bodies, no croaks, nothing. The air smelled sour, like vinegar and rot, the way your hands smell after gutting a fish and not washing them right. The birds went next. First the noisy ones, mockingbirds, jays, redwings, then the owls, then nothing. Silence, thick and unnatural. I found a deer, half rotted in the shallow edge of the bayou, its belly split and ribs showing. No flies, no scavengers. Just open and still, like it had been arranged that way. Curtis laughed when I told him. "Swamp's always been weird," he said, popping open another beer. "You just forgot how weird." "This ain't weird. This is wrong," he grinned. "Difference is only about 2 drinks, cousin." Later, he dared me to open the crypt. "You got the keys. Just a peek. We'll leave a beer down there for him. Call it communion." "Shut the hell up." "Come on, preacher boy. You scared?" "No," I lied. "I respect it, and May, and what she gave her life to guard." He snorted. "She gave her life to fear, same as you." That night, the dreams came harder. This time, I was inside the crypt. I felt the walls, stone slick with something warm like sweat. I saw the carvings, winding lines that pulsed when I touched them. I smelled iron, old milk, and the copper-sweet stench of open wounds. He was there. I couldn't see him, not fully. Just shapes. Fingers that dragged along the wall behind me, teeth that shone in the dark without a face to hold them. A voice that whispered from every stone, "Preach, my boy. Preach like blood remembers." When I woke, there were handprints on the inside of the bedroom window. My handprints, but reversed, as if I'd been outside, pressing to get in. May used to tell me the full story only when she'd been drinking. Said Ezekiel Mawson was a preacher once, young, beautiful, touched by the Lord, or so folks thought. But his sermons grew strange. Wasn't fire and brimstone, she said. Was sweeter than that, like he knew you, like he could name your sin in 3 words or less and love you for it anyway. He stopped baptizing in the river, said water was too shallow, started dragging his flock into the swamp, deeper and deeper, said he was washing them clean in the old way. They found bones eventually, teeth marks in them, some sharpened, some grown that way. They hanged him on a dogwood tree near the edge of the property. Said the bark never grew right again. Said the rope turned to smoke and floated off. So they buried what was left of him deep, sealed in stone, with 13 chains and 13 drops of blood from every Mawson alive at the time. He died, May said, but he didn't go. He just changed addresses. Curtis disappeared 2 days later. Left his truck, left his wallet, his guitar, even his beer. I found the front door open and muddy footprints leading into the woods. Just one set. No sign of a struggle. No note. Last I saw of him, he was walking toward the crypt at dusk, bottle in hand, whistling something that sounded like a hymn if you'd grown up in hell. I waited until nightfall to follow. Didn't find him. But the chain on the crypt door was broken again. only one this time. But the crack in the stone, wider, and the air inside, breathing. They dragged the bayou for 3 days. Curtis was just gone. No blood, no clothes, no sign of a struggle. The dogs wouldn't even cross the tree line. One lay down at the edge of the clearing and pissed itself. Another turned in a circle and died, eyes wide and tongue out like it had seen something too big to scream at. Sheriff Cotter came out once. Big man, sweat stains already forming under his arms before he got out of the cruiser. He wouldn't leave the road, just stood there squinting through his aviators like the trees might rearrange themselves and spell out what happened. I pointed toward the crypt, said that's where Curtis had been headed last. Sheriff spat in the grass and shook his head. Place makes my nose bleed. You serious? Dead serious. Did the same thing when I came here back in '98, when your Uncle Lenny put a rifle in his mouth. Went too close to that stone box out back and felt like a wasp crawled up behind my eyes. Started leaking blood out my left nostril like a stuck pig. Haven't been back since. Curtis might be in there. Well, he said, slipping his sunglasses back on, then you best pray to Jesus or whoever you folks pray to that he ain't. That was the last time I saw the sheriff. Next time I called, it went to voicemail. After that, the line went dead. I went to the crypt myself that evening. Had to. I didn't want to, but I had to. The clearing was too quiet again. No birds, no bugs, just the wet hush of swamp breath. The chains were undone, all of them, laid in a neat pile like old jewelry on a dresser. The padlock, my grandmother's, was snapped in two, twisted like taffy. The sigils had run like red tears in the rain. The crescent swirl was now a spiral, stretching wide across the stone door. The crack in the door had become a seam, and the seam had split open. I don't know why I stepped in. Maybe I wanted to know. Maybe it was blood calling to blood again. Or maybe it was something worse, something in me that belonged to it, waiting to come home. The air was warm and wet and stank of copper and mildew. I held a flashlight, but it didn't seem to push back much of the dark. The beam got swallowed fast, like the walls were drinking it. There were stairs, stone, narrow, slippery, covered in moss and writing, etched deep into the walls in looping curls and slashes that glowed faintly when I passed them. They weren't there before. I know they weren't. The old photos May kept, the ones I dug out of the freezer with her journal, they showed blank stone. But now the walls had sermons carved into them. The words weren't English, weren't Latin either. I don't know what they were, but I recognized them. Not the meaning, but the feeling. Like hearing your own name whispered by someone you don't remember loving. At the bottom of the stairs, there were candles, still burning, 13 of them in a perfect circle. The wax puddled in a ring around a hole in the floor. I couldn't see the bottom of that hole. I tried. Dropped a rock down and counted. Never heard it hit. I circled the edge once, careful, slow. On the far wall there was a carving, a face, long, narrow, impossibly stretched. Eyes the size of dinner plates, mouth wide, too wide, lips curled back in a smile so big it cracked the stone. Teeth, of course, so many teeth, all carved with care, each one a little sermon on its own. Underneath, in those same swirling glyphs, a fresh message. Welcome back, child. The congregation waits. That's when I heard it, not a voice. Breathing, wet and deep, like lungs that hadn't drawn air in decades, like someone sucking soup through a rag, thick, sloppy, and then a scuttle. Not footsteps, something lower to the ground, legs that weren't built right, a drag and clatter sound, like a dog with a broken spine pulling itself along the floor. I didn't stay to see what made it. Back at the house, everything felt wrong. Shadows stayed too long. Corners pulsed when I wasn't looking. Reflections in the windows seemed just a blink behind me, watching instead of mirroring. I cleaned my boots. Twice. The mud wouldn't come off. My teeth ached, not from grinding or cold. Just ached like they were swelling or making room for something else to grow in. I called the sheriff again. No answer. Called Curtis. Straight to voicemail. Called the pastor from town. Left a message. No one came. I went into town next day. Needed supplies. Maybe just needed people. They stared when I walked in the general store. Quieted when I passed the register. Old Mr. Blevins wouldn't look me in the eye. The girl stocking shelves near the jerky display muttered something as I passed. I caught the tail end of it. Always brings it back, that family, always brings it back. I wanted to scream. Wanted to grab someone, anyone, and shout, You all knew. You all knew, and you let me come back here. But I didn't, because deep down I had known. And worse, a part of me liked it. That night the frogs came back, but wrong. Croaks all out of rhythm, discordant. One would bleat and three more would echo at once, but from different places. It sounded like a choir of children choking. I didn't sleep. At some point I stepped outside. The air was thick and glowing, humid like a fever, and the mist glowed faintly purple around the edges of things, like moonlight turned sour. And there, at the edge of the water, stood Curtis, pale, naked, mud clinging to him like a second skin. He smiled when he saw me. His eyes were all wrong, too wide, too flat, like saucers full of milk. No pupils, just that milky swirl like a frog's belly flipped inside out. When he opened his mouth, it wasn't his voice that came out. It was a chorus, high and low at once, male and female, human and something else. It said, "The congregation grows and the sermon's just beginning." He turned, waded into the swamp, didn't sink, didn't float. He just dissolved. One step, then another, and then the ripples stopped. Nothing left but still water. And the frogs, croaking in time. I started sleeping during the day. Couldn't help it. The sun hurt. Not my skin, at least. Not at first, but my eyes. Like it was too sharp, like it sliced through my thoughts. Everything too clear, too dry. I began closing the curtains, taping black trash bags to the windows. I told myself it was for the heat. But the truth was, I could see better in the dark. And that scared me worse than anything. Because there were things in the dark now. Shapes, faces maybe, limbs bent the wrong way, a smile drifting in the air before a body caught up to it. I could sense them, even if I couldn't see them. And the worst part, they didn't scare me. They felt familiar. My teeth hurt constantly, not in the jaw, not like a cavity, in the teeth. Ached like they were growing, pushing against themselves. I caught myself grinding them when I was alone, chewing air, mouthing words I didn't know. One morning, if you can call it morning when you haven't seen the sun in 4 days, I ran my tongue along my gums and felt something new. A ridge. Thin. Sharp. Not a tooth exactly. More like a seam. That night I woke up with blood in my mouth. I wasn't sure if it was mine. The dreams turned into memories, but not mine. I saw through eyes I never owned, cold and wide, set too far apart. I stood in the swamp, in a body that wasn't mine, facing down a congregation in rags and fevered eyes. There were no words, only sound, guttural and rolling like thunder caught in a throat. But they understood. They dropped to their knees. They screamed. Some wept. Others opened their mouths and let in the dark. And I smiled. Blood is bread, the thought echoed, and my children are hungry. I woke soaked in sweat and whispering something that made the air taste bitter. I started rereading May's journal, found the pages I'd missed before, tucked between the back cover and the cardboard binding. These weren't sermons, they were confessions. Entries from other watchers, ones who came before her. Some names I knew, some I didn't. Every one of them broke, every single one. The entries all started hopeful, rational, then they dipped, fast. I only peeked, just once, just to be sure it was still there. He spoke to me last night, said he forgave me, said he missed the choir. I saw my sister in the trees. She smiled. She had his eyes. It's not a prison, it's a crib. May wrote the last entry. Her handwriting was shaking. I heard it cry. I heard my own name in its breath. I thought I was the last. I was wrong. He has many children, and they have started to walk. I saw the first of them 2 nights later. Thin, bone thin, like the idea of a person more than a person. Pale skin slick like frog belly, limbs too long, too slow. It stood just beyond the tree line, swaying. At first I thought it was Curtis. Then it opened its mouth. No tongue, no throat, just teeth. Too many. In spirals, in rows, in patterns. It spoke without speaking. A whisper in my head, "Are you ready to sing?" The next night there were more. They moved through the trees like a tide, silent, certain. Some crawled, some walked. One floated 2 inches above the ground, spine twitching like it was remembering how to die. They came from the crypt. I know that now. But not just the crypt, the water too, the dirt, the trees. It wasn't a tomb, it was a womb. The night preacher didn't die, he bred. Every generation we thought we were watching him, keeping him locked away like a spider under glass. But all we ever did was feed him, blood, breath, attention, fear, and like anything long forgotten, he grew in the dark. The flashbacks came like seizures, slammed into my head while I was standing, sitting, blinking. Flashes of past watchers. My great-aunt Esther standing over the open crypt, bleeding from the nose, humming a hymn. Uncle Lenny dragging a dead raccoon to the stairs and whispering dinner. May lighting a circle of candles and crying as she said the words, "I can't keep it alone no more." They all kept the door closed, but they didn't seal it. Because they couldn't. Because the door was never made to be locked. It was made to open once the song was right. And now the music was swelling. I watched a man disappear in the swamp. Old guy. Lived up near the fishing road, used to sell bait and moonshine. I saw him from my porch. He wandered too close to the water. One of them was waiting. It didn't grab him. It didn't need to. It sang. And the old man dropped his lantern, walked into the water with his hands raised like he was walking down the aisle to meet the Lord himself. He never came back up, but something else did. Smaller, thinner, with too many smiles. More went missing. First the out-of-towners, then the lonely, then the sick. Some came back, some didn't. The ones that came back were wrong. Their eyes were cloudy, their mouths too still. They started building things, little altars, little piles of stone and wood shaped like teeth, shaped like the crypt. They hummed while they worked. Same melody every time, low, throaty. The kind of sound you'd expect to hear from under the floorboards of hell. The swamp's getting bigger. I don't mean flooding, I mean spreading. The road to town's gone soft. Trees I've never seen before are blooming with fruit that smells like rotted milk. The birds haven't come back. The wind moves in circles, carries whispers. The congregation is gathering, and it remembers. I looked in the water tonight. I'd been trying not to, but I had to check. Had to be sure. I leaned over the dock and looked straight down. The reflection blinked first. Then it smiled, not my smile, not quite. It had my eyes, my face, my posture, but it wasn't me. Its teeth were sharper, its skin a little paler, and behind me, something huge moved beneath the surface, something long, coiled, patient. The reflection whispered, in a voice I swear came from inside my own ears, "Soon, just one more song." They tried to fight, the town, I mean. Somewhere between the fourth and fifth disappearance, the townsfolk stopped pretending. Sheriff Cotter, God bless him, roused the volunteer fire department and what was left of the VFW, and they went out with flashlights, shotguns, and Bible verses. They made it as far as the clearing. No one ever talks about what they saw there. The two that came back, at least. Both of them white-haired and bone-shaken, even though they were in their 40s. One won't speak at all now. Sits on the porch of the general store and stares into the woods. Flinches if you cough too loud. The other, he slit his own mouth open ear to ear with a buck knife. They found him smiling, finally. The preacher's children don't wait for night anymore. They walk in daylight now. You can't shoot them. Not really. You can hit them. Blow holes in them the size of soup bowls. But they don't fall. Don't bleed right. They just stop moving for a while, then start up again. Some crawl, some walk, some float, their feet dragging lazy across the dirt like they forgot what gravity was for. They hum that tune, that damn tune, the one that tastes like iron in the back of your throat and makes your tongue want to curl backward. Most don't even look at you, because they're not after you. They're following a song, and the song is old, older than this town, older than trees, older than names. The swamp's everywhere now, flooded the fields, took the road, ate the church, didn't even spit out the bell. The water isn't water anymore, it's breath. It moves in and out like lungs. It remembers things. Sometimes, if you lean in close enough, you'll hear names whispered in the ripples. Not just spoken, breathed. Like the swamp has been chewing them over, tasting them. The congregation's not just in the crypt anymore. It's everywhere now. I saw the grocer's boy walk into the bayou yesterday with a song on his lips and gills behind his ears. He didn't blink when I called his name, just kept walking, didn't even leave a ripple. I preached my first sermon last night, didn't mean to, not really. It just came out of me. I stood outside the crypt, the sky above black as ink with stars like pinholes in a drowning bag, and I opened my mouth, and I sang. Not a song with melody exactly. No words, just that sound, deep and thick, like speaking through molasses, like growling underwater. The sound the wind makes when it crawls under your house in January and whispers your sins through the vents. And the swamp answered back. It listened. The trees bent forward, the water rippled with approval, the crypt doors groaned wider, and something inside began to hum in harmony. I was never meant to seal the crypt. None of us were. That's the lie they passed down, like a rotten heirloom, polished on the outside, full of teeth and memory on the inside. We weren't guards. We were midwives. Generation after generation, feeding it, telling the stories, keeping the bloodline warm. Each time the door cracked, we said it was an accident. It wasn't. It was labor. And now it's born. When I look in the mirror now, I don't see myself. Not really. The face looks familiar, sure. Still got the scar on my chin from when I fell off the dock as a kid. Still got the little mole under my eye. But the eyes, too dark, too deep. And behind them, something stirs. Something that remembers fire and water and voices crying out for salvation. And it remembers teeth, so many teeth. I walked into the crypt this morning. No shotgun, no flashlight, no fear. I brought my grandmother's Bible. I brought the blood-stained pages. I brought my voice. Inside, the candles were still lit. The carvings pulsed, living things now, full of breath and want. The stone beneath my feet flexed like muscle, and the air shimmered like breath rising from warm stew. He was waiting, not in body, not like the old stories said, but in the space, in the silence between my footsteps, in the weight behind my name. He was there, and he was listening. I spoke in the language he gave me, wet-tongued, back-throated, thick as syrup and old blood, words that aren't words, sounds that make your teeth itch. And as I spoke, the stone wept, tears of milk, tears of mud, tears of every prayer ever whispered too late. The walls closed behind me, but I didn't feel trapped. I felt home. I walked down past the ring of candles, down past the stone stairs that no longer crumbled, down into the root of it, the heart of it. And I saw them, the congregation, not monsters, family, bone-thin, yes, sermon-mouthed, yes, but mine, ours. They looked up and smiled, and I smiled back, and that's where I'll stay. No need for locks now, no need for chains. Because the world above has already begun to change. It's already begun to sing. Children hum it in their sleep. Dogs bark at the water. Women wake from dreams of teeth and open their windows. They're listening. They remember. My name was never mine to begin with. It was borrowed, like the body, like the voice, like the blood. Our Father sleeps no more, and the sermon has just begun.